A to the K.
A to the K.
A to the K.
Coming up tonight on the Ringside Report. Big Swole criticises AEW for lack of diversity and structure.
Tony Khan fires back at Big Swole's comments, causing AEW stars to react and request an apology.
Toni Storm has been granted her release from WWE.
Drew McIntyre has tipped Bron Breakker as a future main event player.
Sammy Guevara and Tay Conti announced their relationship by sharing a New Year's kiss.
Miro reveals he's been working through an injury.
Johnny Knoxville has been announced as an entrant into the 2022 Royal Rumble.
ITV Studios have confirmed God, words. I was doing so well. ITV Studios have confirmed an Eddie Guerrero documentary is in production.
WWE release NXT staff, including William Regal, Samoa Joe, and Road Dogg.
Hottest fucking topic of this week. We're so still pissed off with that. Anyway, Impact Knockouts champion Mickie James will be in this year's Royal Rumble.
What?
Yeah.
And Anthony, when is all that coming up?
It's all coming up, Carl. Right fucking now.
Yes, it is. Let's kick things off then with Big Swole criticising AEW. So as we know,
controversial.
Bit controversial. Basically, as we know, Swole was released, basically parted ways with AEW late last year. And on her, basically, is it a podcast that she has, Swole World?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Basically, she spoke out around kind of the reason that she didn't resign, and she's quoted as saying, "I explained that I didn't want to resign because my peace was being disrupted." And basically, she said that she'd been praised quite a bit by Kenny Omega and stuff like that, and that he's someone that she would normally bump heads with and stuff like that. So she felt that it was the right time to end it all kind of at a place where they didn't see eye to eye, but they were at least on the kind of same page of he was complimenting her and stuff like that. But she said that her heart had just stopped being in it, and that's the reason why she left AEW. There's a lot of things, and she mentioned this in her exit interview, that a lot of things need to change. And she said she knows that fans of the company don't particularly take criticism well sometimes, certain ones. But as someone from the inside, she feels the structure is a little off. And it's fine to be loose, but she would prefer it to have a little bit more structure around it, ultimately. She said all the men get a lot of time. The women aren't really getting anything, or you're not kind of putting people on TV because more people are coming in. So there's kind of a lot of stuff there as well. But she also, trying to find a quote from it, so she basically just said, outside of the lack of structure, their biggest issue is diversity. So she said she doesn't beat around the bush when it comes to diversity and her people. She said there is no representation, truly, and when there is, it doesn't come across in the black community as genuine at all, and she doesn't know why everyone's so afraid to accept it or say it, but it's not a good look. So obviously the main kind of reasons that she cited then for deciding not to renew and stay with the company, mutually, obviously, as well with AEW, is that she felt, obviously, from a structure standpoint, it's a little bit all over the place, and also that from a diversity standpoint, she didn't feel well represented.
So there's an interesting couple of things there, and this is a topic it's not one that we probably have a bit of difficulty talking on account, because like what do we know about concerns or issues over diversity? But a couple of the things there, when she's talking about the structure elements, I find it interesting, and this is just her opinion, and she's totally entitled to it, that some people work differently with different things. What people love about AEW, what some wrestlers love about AEW, is the creative freedom, and not being overly structured, which is something she obviously doesn't like. She wants somewhere in between, maybe not as far as WWE, but she wants something that's a bit more structured. That's fine, and that's, some people would prefer that, and some people would prefer the freedom, and yeah, I can't argue with that point. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not trying to say she's wrong in what she's saying, because she's not. The actual whole thing of this, that like, I'm not like trying to pick sides, right? Obviously, I'll move into mine a little bit of a cud. That's Tony Khan fired back at this, and he has been defensive. It's interesting because some people are like totally like, oh, she's talentless, this, that, and the next thing, and coming at her, and some people are coming at Tony, who's been really unprofessional in his reaction. And I think, yeah, there's a bit of both. Now, what I think's unfair is to put it totally on Tony. Like, he should have been more professional. He should have been more that. She, like, that one comment, the comment you made there, Carl, that quote you put in there, where she was saying about the diversity element of it, that there's no representation. That's the bit he took umbrage with, and that's the bit he reacted to defensively. And I can kind of see his point, because, and this, again, she's on a podcast and she's able to talk candid, just like you and me are doing now, right? And how annoying would it be if we said something and somebody's gone, well, you shouldn't have said it like that. I say, well, I want to be able to have a conversation. I don't want to have to, this wasn't a speech I was putting out there, so I didn't want to have to like concern myself with how it was worded. So I'm not coming out and saying you should have worded this better, but at the same time I can see why Tony reacted, because I don't think he's done a bad job at all of representation and diversity, to the point that, like, it basically, Tony's response was, the top two AEW execs are Brown, me, and Mega. Jade, Bowens, Caster, Dante, Nyla, Isaiah, and Mark Quinn all won on TV this month. The TBS title tournament has been very diverse. I let Swole's contract expire as I felt her wrestling wasn't good enough. Hashtag AEW Rampage Street Fight Tonight. And yeah, I kind of understand his defensive reaction, because I don't think the issue is necessarily diversity. I'm not saying that she's wrong, because obviously she's referring to, because I think the way she worded it, and I don't want to read too much into wording, because again, she was having a conversation and she wasn't out there to be quoted, in a sense. She wasn't like giving a speech. She was saying something in a conversation on a podcast. So she's referred to her people, and you go, well, yeah, because there's been diversity there, but the representation for black women, has it been there for her? Like, and I can understand that side of it, you know what I mean? But that's not how she worded it. She mentioned diversity, and I think I mentioned this to you, Carl, that like the women's title scene especially, Britt Baker's the first white woman to win the title.
Yeah.
So it's been reasonably diverse up to this point. But and another little bit that, and again, I don't want to get into the whole racial politics. It's not really our place at all, because we can't speak on that sort of thing. But apparently, like, I thought Nyla Rose represented black women and represented that diversity and that side of it, but then I've seen people on social media talking about the fact that, like, well, you know, she's not 100% black, and then you get like, this is where it gets confusing for me, because I'm like, so how black do you have to be representing the black community then? Like, I don't understand why Nyla didn't count. Like, I don't want to get into the whole trans thing of people going, well, is it a transphobic thing that she didn't count when they're talking about diversity? Or was it just that because it's only been Nyla, like, Swole's not actually getting at that, she's just saying that there's not been enough, but then look at the amount of champions we've had, how much is enough? Like, it's a really messy area to get into. And I can understand why Tony's been defensive, because as far as diversity goes, he's done a fairly good job so far, I would say, personally.
No, I agree with you. I think on that point with Nyla, I think it's something that The Rock also kind of had a bit. Like, people kind of didn't class The Rock as like a black champion. It was like, oh, he's Samoan, or you know what I mean? So it was kind of like, what?
And it's like, obviously, he takes a lot of pride in his. I mean, he's named after his own father. Like,
well, exactly.
So he takes a lot of pride in his black heritage as well.
Exactly. So it's a hard one, isn't it? I think people from obviously the black community want that representation of having someone who, you know, looks like them, that they can grow up and, you know, have as like role models and stuff like that. And, you know, you completely get that. But I mean, at the same time, like, I think the point you mentioned as well, from a diversity standpoint, I think that's where you said maybe she could have worded it slightly better in what she meant, because, you know, from a diversity standpoint, they have been very, very diverse. You mentioned it with the women's title. We've had Rio, we've had Hikaru Shida, we've had Nyla Rose, you know, 3 of the women's champions, and now we've got Britt Baker. We've now got Jade Cargill, the first TBS women's champion as well.
Which is almost annoying because I feel like that was happening anyway, but some people are now making the argument that that was a reaction to this whole conversation, which I don't think it was. And I don't know if Swole probably wasn't even getting at that. Do you know what I mean? I don't think that's been a reactionary thing. But again, this is the only thing when she's having a conversation on her podcast, and now it's turned into this whole thing. And some people are like, I don't think either party should be getting sort of got at here. Is my point, I suppose, because I like you say, I think it was just a choice of wording at the time that maybe she could have worded it slightly differently in the sense of, like, when she's talking about representation, because obviously, and that is an area that again we would struggle to talk on because we've had an abundance of representation growing up that we can look at these people that we idolize. You know what I mean? Like, you know, from a UK standpoint, I mean, we only had the British Bulldog who represented like Northern England in the world of wrestling. So like, I'm not trying to liken it, but at the same time, you go, well, like, we've had people to look up to. So it's not been, like you say, I think you made the comment about people who look like me, and I think that's she mentioned in the podcast, if I'm wrong, Carl, apologies, but she mentioned her daughter, and obviously you can see she's considered her daughter growing up and looking for heroes, and I totally get that as well. But again, I understand everyone's like, Tony Khan should be more professional, and this is where I defend Tony a little bit, because he should be, like, he owns a business, and, you know, at the end of the day, he's a young guy who's got access to money that allows him to sort of do what he wants and fulfill his dreams, you know, and he's very sort of personal to this product. He puts it together himself. He's so heavily involved in it. How is he not going to be defensive when someone makes a comment that he disagrees with? And apparently he's not allowed to be defensive. People are like, oh, he should be more professional, and that's like, yeah, okay, maybe, but like, I'd probably, I think, as well, if somebody was telling me something that I did not feel was true at all, I would probably defend my position as well. So I think a lot of people took exception to him saying that wrestling wasn't good enough. Which,
I mean, again, it ultimately,
subjective.
That's what it boils down to, isn't it? Is people are looking at the fact he was like, oh, I decided to let it expire because she simply wasn't good enough, blah blah blah. So a lot of people are looking at that as like, oh, she's said something you don't like, so now you're gonna come back at her with, like, you know, a cheap shot or something like that. But, you know, it's one of them. At the end of the day, you know, Swole is entitled to and has her opinions on things from the inside of what she's experienced with that company, and is completely within her, you know, within her rights to speak on that and what she's experienced and what she believes they need to do better. So, you know, there's nothing else to say in that regard. From the Tony standpoint, I think, you know, he probably didn't need to put that in the tweet, if you think about it, but he's probably reacting to, you know, very emotional reaction, like, to
the same way I go, like, you know, Big Swole was having a conversation on her podcast, and I don't want to try and say, well, she's gone out there to put this message out there, and, you know, it's unfair. It's the same thing that Tony, he's done it on social media, and I get that. He's been reactive, and has he done it in a sense of, like, he feels he has to give a reason why she was released because he doesn't want it to be considered to be a race thing? Do you know what I mean? Like, as stupid as it sounds, like, I don't even know. He might, because he doesn't speak on it now. He's not sort of offered any further response, has he? But, like, I don't think he necessarily believes she's a bad wrestler. But, like, you got to ask yourself, what were his reasons for releasing her? And he's offered them out there that her wrestling weren't good enough. He's not saying she's not a good wrestler, but what does he consider good enough? Like, with the stacked roster he's got. And I'm not saying I agree with him at all. I'm just like, I don't know. In hindsight, he might not have wanted to put that comment on there, but at the same time, maybe he felt compelled to offer a reason given the subject matter, you know?
Yeah. But no, I think, you know, regardless, at the end of the day, Tony's reacted to it emotionally with how, you know, because he firmly doesn't believe what Swole is saying. He's therefore offered that up. You know, I don't think he needs to apologise. Like, I know a lot of people are like boycotting AEW and stuff like that. But
one person who thinks he should apologise is Lio Rush. So Lio Rush has recently joined AEW, as you know. He put some tweets out in response to this, saying, firstly, saying, I'm not cool with any of this shit, to be honest. And then followed up with, if nobody says something, then I will, because this is fucked up, and now I'm pissed. And then lastly, just wrote in capitals, apologise, and added Tony Khan and AEW. As far as I'm aware, Tony didn't respond social media-wise on this. I'm just trying to find it, because I feel like I read a further response from Leo, where he explained that he has had a conversation with him, but there's been no sort of further interaction between the two on social media, because I assume
No.
Joe was to sort of
He did put something out there like that, so I know you're looking for it now, but I know that he actually got backlash from the thing he put back out there after it, of people saying that, like, oh, you know, he's being coerced into basically standing down and this kind of thing and stuff like that, from, because I think basically...
It makes me laugh that when has Leo ever been coerced into standing down? Like, he left WWE because he fell out with, sort of fell out with a few people, but he left WWE under a cloud. He was willing to do that because he stood by his convictions. I'd be very surprised if he's not willing to do the same now.
Well, exactly.
He doesn't need AEW. He just wants to wrestle, you know? So, I don't know. I'll take him on his word. But I think I've found it now. So he did sort of follow up saying, I want this to be clear. I do not consider this to be a diversity issue. I at no point have thought or said that AEW or Tony is racist. We can all clearly see that wrestling as a whole and the AEW roster is perpetually diverse. He put the issue at hand was a racial insensitivity issue. He's put further comments saying, I am proud to work for a boss and a company that tried to make these strides in social equality. I look forward to working with Tony to keep making steps towards positive change. I pray that 2022 is a year for positive change in all aspects. And I think that's what people have come at, that like he's been sort of coerced to say that. But at the same time, like, again, Tony's initial comment was reactive and probably not the best thing to do. Swole's comments were from a conversation that was, I don't think she set out to blast AEW, but some of those comments were taken that way. So Leo's walked away from his initial tweets and had a conversation, and we've obviously had a fairly positive conversation about like making some positive change in wrestling. And now that's like, oh, you've been coerced. And it's like, has he? Because like AEW have made really good efforts in terms of diversity compared to a lot of wrestling companies. So it's not unrealistic that they've had a conversation that's been a positive thing about being more diverse and being more inclusive. So
yeah,
I don't know.
It's a hard one, isn't it? When like certain conversations happen in the public eye, and then suddenly parts of it are resolved behind the scenes, not on Twitter and not in an article, and then the fans feel like they demand to know what's kind of happened, and if they don't know, then it's obviously like coercion, or someone's being told to pipe down or whatever. But it sounds like they've had a very kind of amicable conversation about things, and they're both willing to try and make wrestling a better place as a whole, which is what you want, isn't it? So
exactly. So basically, they've all had a spat in front of the eyes. That's probably could have been a totally different conversation in person.
Yeah. Just another highlight out there of the wonders of social media and whatnot. So yeah.
Indeed. So again, I don't think we should talk more on it, especially in terms of like how diverse are they and how inclusive should they be and all that kind of stuff, because that's a journey they're gonna have to go on. You know what I mean? But I think I don't have issue with Tony's comments. I know a lot of people have come at that, but it was reactive. It was defensive. Yeah. And should everyone be perfect all the time? No. It is what it is.
Well, I mean, people are still allowed to have opinions at the end of the day, whether you agree with them or not. If you don't, you don't. It is what it is. Just move on. So the next one to talk about, Toni Storm has been granted her release from WWE. So obviously came as a bit of a surprise, I think, to a lot of people when it was first announced that she was gone. People thinking that she had been released. But yeah, by all accounts, she actually requested that release. So according to Uncle Dave, he basically commented on it saying, in terms of the reason she left, the only thing he heard was about burnout, essentially. So a lot of people have then been speculating, well, is she going to go to AEW? What's going to happen there? And the belief is that there's still expected to be a 90-day non-compete, even though it was a release that was requested and stuff like that. So yeah, what do you make of this at a time when the WWE women's roster? I mean, it's funny because there's a 30-woman Royal Rumble coming up, and I think when you combine the rosters of both of the main shows, you've got nowhere near that figure of competitors, and then obviously more and more people are leaving the company. So, what are your thoughts?
I mean, for me, I'm quite surprised she requested a release. I don't think she really had much going on the main roster, but she was there, and she was like hopefully going to start getting some stuff. And maybe she was getting frustrated from a creative point of view, because she certainly didn't have the screen time she did in NXT.
Well, I mean, to be fair, sorry to interrupt, just on that, like, if you think about it, she got brought up to the main roster and sat in catering for weeks and weeks and weeks. And when they did finally decide to use her, on the one hand, it was within a feud with Charlotte Flair, which is, you can't really get much higher. But on the other hand, it was involving like throwing cake and flour and shit in each other's faces. So
yeah, very Diva era stuff, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah,
that is what they mud wrestled. But another thing that surprises me, not so much about it wanting to release, I get that, it's a personal decision. Unusual, WWE didn't do the release and she actually asked for it this time. But the fact that it's done now, even from it, I get she might want to request a release whenever, but you think WWE would try and sort of have a conversation about, like, well, you know, stick around for the Rumble. Yeah. But
yeah, it's a good point, that, to be fair.
It's a shame, because she's a really talented person. It'd be interesting to see where she goes going forward. And it's something that WWE sorely needed, was like more women. Like, as much as like their women's division have been killing it, beyond the 4 horsewomen, they've not built anyone. It's a similar problem that they have with the men's roster, really. They're struggling to build up new people, let's be honest. Yeah. And maybe we'll feel a more of an influx coming forward. Like, the 4 horsewomen are a little bit sort of oversaturated at the moment, but then you got Lacey coming back soon enough. You got Alexa, who's come back this week, I believe, Carl, and hopefully we're going to see more and more of like a bit more variety, I suppose. But at the same time, I don't know. Like, I do kind of worry in the same sense of like, are we building up newer talent, or are we just relying on Sasha, Bayley, Charlotte, and Becky forever?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way. As you said, that's the way it's been in the men's roster for a long time. So yeah, it seems like, obviously we put something out on social the week where basically a bit tongue in cheek, but you know, I firmly believe that we haven't created new stars in 10 years. Now I know a couple of people kind of said in the comments like, oh, that's not true, XXX people, but
I think it's interesting. A lot of people, if you look at your comments to that, for those who are interested, Carl put this on social media, and he put some sort of he put the list out there so you could see the reasoning. But I think a lot of people took what you said the wrong way, because you were saying about building up stars, and the comments to me were people, and I'm not getting at anyone in the comments, because, you know, it's an interesting conversation and we love having these sort of conversations, but people were referring to holding championships, and it's like, but we're not saying that no one's held belts, we're saying no one's built stars, and I think there's a big difference in that.
Yeah,
like,
and
I know one of your comments referred to Rhea Ripley, and it's like, yeah, she's held a championship very briefly, but I wouldn't say that they've built up her as a star in the last 10 years.
No.
So I think your comments are totally valid. I think your point is still totally valid. It's a very interesting conversation, though, and I've enjoyed the comments, I must admit.
The Rhea Ripley one was fascinating to me, because she has, because a lot of the things that I did in that was to say, well, who, because essentially your class as a star if you can headline a WrestleMania. By headline, I mean you're in the title picture at WrestleMania. That's obviously the show of shows. But Rhea Ripley's actually been in the women's title match, I think, twice at WrestleMania. So, like, you could argue, or maybe, but if you look at the position she's been on the card overall, other than around WrestleMania, weirdly enough, is she's been lower card. So she's kind of the polar opposite to my point, in a sense. So you can kind of see why people would still include her, even though right now she's floundering in a lower, lower card feud.
Well, you see, that's where I love the conversation. That's where I'm not getting at the comments. I just find it interesting, the interpretation, because some people are like taking the point, and like you say, Rhea is probably an arguable one, but like, what would you class as it? Because would you class it as a star in the women's division right now? Probably not. I mean, don't be wrong. She obviously is having a good title run with Nikki. Well, you know how I feel about the tag belts. I don't respect them, so it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, she's definitely got star potential. Using her as an example, but again, it's great engaging, especially engaging in that way with our social media and with that point. But I firmly believe you.
Yeah,
I do agree with your points.
No, definitely. But yeah, interesting one with Toni Storm. I wonder where she's going to end up, whether she is going to get back into wrestling after them 90 days, because obviously it was very sudden. I'm sure she will. But yeah, let's see where she goes next and what she does.
Indeed. So moving over, Carl, to the next one I've got. We're talking Drew McIntyre, Carl, your favourite big Scottish guy. He's been talking recently about Bron Breakker. So there's a lot of talk around Bron Breakker at the moment, as you will know. And before I go into the whole Drew McIntyre side of things, we've had the likes of Matt Riddle comparing Bron Breakker to a young Goldberg, which means he's unsafe and going to injure people, I think. I don't like Goldberg. Anyway, Drew McIntyre recently has been speaking, not on our podcast, Carl, of course, but he's been speaking. Who's he been speaking to? Rick Ucchino, however I pronounce that right. And they were talking about Bron Breakker. And he's been quoted, and I'll give you the quote, Carl. I'll give you the quote. He's saying, I think that I mentioned this to my wife last night. We had NXT on in the gym when we were working out. She said to me when she saw AJ on the screen, like, you think you'll end up showing up because AJ was there? And I was just trying to think, who logically would I come out and do something with? Maybe Bron Breakker. We've spent some time in Europe. I got a chance to see him up close, see his attitude and his work ethic. I'm very impressed. If he keeps doing what he's doing, keeps his feet on the ground, he's going to be a future main event player for sure. Which is a very fair comment. And we mentioned this earlier, Carl, about I personally feel they might have pulled the trigger a little bit too soon on his championship run, but he's definitely got star potential. So what do you think of, like, for starters, the fact that we've had AJ rock up in NXT and the potential for maybe that's how we keep sort of Bron's title run, like, interesting, pulling people in like Drew McIntyre, for instance, and having a bit of a feud? Because I would love to see that as a feud. But what do you think of the possibility of, like, keeping NXT busy with, for stars, I don't know what this article's about, but keeping NXT busy with stars like Drew McIntyre? Or do you think we need Bron in the main title scene so we can go up against people more of that caliber? Because I feel like he's got a rocket up his ass at the moment, Bron, so it wouldn't be unrealistic to see him on the main roster.
Well, yeah. I think the AJ thing, I think they were going up against NBA or NFL or something, so they needed some kind of more eyeballs on it, so they thought, let's put someone like AJ on the show. So I don't think it's something they're going to continue to do going forward. I also think it probably, because if you bring Drew McIntyre in to go up against Bron on NXT, like, you can't have Bron beat him, really.
No.
Because
you just can't. At the minute, isn't he? So taking a loss from him probably wouldn't be a good thing. So
for me, if Bron does, similar to like what Kevin Owens did, when John Cena was the US champ and Kevin Owens basically came out and challenged him in the open challenge, and it was like Kevin Owens lost that. Did he lose that match or did he win? I think he might have lost. I think he might have lost that one, but he has beat him.
I think you're right.
But yeah, so I can see something like that happening where, Bron comes out and takes Drew to the limit on the main roster, but comes up just short, and they shake hands, and it's like we're going to see that in the future kind of thing. But yeah, I would like to think and probably hope that they wouldn't do anything as silly as that anytime soon, really, because, to your point, yeah, he's got a rocket up his ass, but you don't want that rocket to fucking explode and burst into flames, literally, on his career. So yeah, it's one of those. I think it would be too much too soon, and I think he's already a bit too much too soon. But it's nice though to see Drew McIntyre be in the position now where he's someone who, if you think about it, the chosen one way back when is just this kid who, Vince McMahon saw something or whatever. It's mad to think in however many years later now he's the kind of the guy giving the advice to the younger kid and kind of bringing them up and saying he's a future star and stuff. So
do you know what? I love the fact that, like, despite how the fans feel about him at the moment, and we've talked about that, is the fact that his opinion is respected enough that it's newsworthy when he says someone's going to be a star.
Yeah.
Because we say it all the time and it never makes the news.
I know, yeah, come on. Come on with that. Wicked. So, next one to talk about, bit controversial, this one, isn't it? I mean, it is and it isn't. It depends, again, on, obviously, what people say on Twitter and things like that. But, so, obviously, we reported a couple of weeks ago that Sammy Guevara ended his engagement to his longtime girlfriend, Pam. There was a lot of speculation at the time. Obviously, Tay Conti deleted her Twitter and stuff as a result, that everyone basically saying that something was going on and, like, there was some kind of affair and that's what led to the split and blah, 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 blah. Now, basically, after Sammy and Pam split up, it wasn't much longer after that, and after the speculation that basically they posted a obviously New Year's Eve picture of them basically kissing, and confirmed their relationship shortly after that, basically. So yeah, I think it sent a lot of people into, a frenzy, I think, on Twitter of going, oh, we were right, and he is, she is a home wrecker, blah blah blah, and all this kind of stuff. Which it's important we point out. We still, that's still not a thing. Like, there's nothing out there that says that is what's happened, and
No. Well, Sammy,
anything,
rightly so, has been very quiet on the matter. He to say that they weren't together anymore because the fans were invested in them as a couple, but has not spoken any further on why they split up, and rightly so. That's his personal business. So, like you say, everything around she's a home wrecker and this is what's caused it is all speculative. I mean, you could argue that from a perspective of, like, you've only just split up with your fiance, maybe getting into another relationship is a bit quick, but again, that's all personal opinion, man.
Well, exactly. So it's one of them, isn't it? I think, by all accounts, I think it was Alan Angels, who obviously goes on his podcast, his vlog, quite a bit. He basically said something like, "Oh, she's, I'm so happy for you too. She's been there for you when you've been going through some hard times and stuff like that." So almost kind of indirectly referencing that maybe him and Pam were already splitting up. And then as that was going on or something, that Ty was there for him, and then they basically ended up finding a romance after the fact. But yeah, it's all speculation, and let's be honest, not for us to know. Why is it any of our business?
At the end of the day, it's not. It's a personal thing. I think from as a wrestling fan point of view and knowing what the way it can be in terms of being on the road all the time, it can be hard on relationships. It really can. You've seen many relationship form and within the world of wrestling because they're just always around each other, and you see many relationships sort of fall apart because they never see each other. It's a difficult thing, but again, it's an entirely personal thing, and we'll never know, and we shouldn't know.
Yeah, no, exactly. At the end of the day, you've it's not for us, is it? At the end of the day, they're going to share what they want to share with the world, and if you want to consume it, you can do. But at the end of the day, they look happy, so happy for them.
Tay Conti took an opportunity to be with a Spanish god. It is what it is.
Well, exactly. Lucky bitch. That's what we will say. So yeah, that was my one.
Right. Well, moving over, Carl. Just an interesting point. And I feel bad because it's not something I noticed, and I probably should have. And that is the fact that Miro has been dealing with a hamstring injury. And has unfortunately worked through a couple of matches with this injury. So you'll note that he wrestled, I believe it was at AEW's Full Gear, and hasn't really wrestled since then. So he dropped the title to Sammy Guevara, and the belief is that he was sort of taking some time out due to his injury and wasn't originally planned to be in any further matches, but subsequently wrestled 2 matches. One in which he replaced Jon Moxley, given the Jon Moxley situation in the World Title Eliminator tournaments, and the other was defeating Orange Cassidy in a match in November. Cassidy and then Bryan was the 2 matches involved in the Eliminator tournament. Apologies, I read that wrong. And basically, it's believed that he was injured in those 2 matches he had in the tournaments, evidenced by the fact that his leg, I believe, was taped up at the time. And now, obviously, he's dealing with that injury, so we've no actual time frame on his return. And sadly, we just hope to see him in action again soon. But I feel bad because I hadn't really picked up on his absence. I figured it was just like a bit of natural time, I suppose, because he dropped the title and we were sort of transitioning between storylines. But it turns out, we might not see him for a little while due to his hamstring.
Yeah, I think they've done a good job of keeping him still in the forefront of people's minds. Obviously, they've had the whole, the Redeemer stuff, the little kind of vignettes and stuff that he's been doing to kind of showcase his new characters. So I think even though we've not seen him in the ring, he hasn't really gone away, which I think is good. I think a lot of people are really digging his...
That's probably why I've not felt it in the same way. In all fairness, because like you say, he's still been around. We still had promos. I think recently we had on Rampage, Miro versus God as a promo, and that sort of thing. So, like you say, he's still kind of been in the eye, but he's not been in a lot of matches, and that's probably where I'm like, I didn't really pick up on that, but because he's not been absent, I don't suppose.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, speedy recovery to him. I think he, this could be a really big year for him. Moving up towards like the main title scene and stuff like that. So yeah, fingers crossed he gets healthy soon and he does start to make his way into that title picture.
Yeah, fingers crossed, man. So nice quick one there for you, Cal.
Yeah. The next one I want to talk about. So Johnny Knoxville is in the Royal Rumble.
He certainly is.
So
Cal.
that was not something I had on my 2022 bingo card. I'll tell you that. So
gotta give him points for unpredictability. It's almost as if Johnny's got a film coming out.
Yeah, it's weird that
AEW are getting money for promoting.
It's weird that. Also announced as one of the participants was the Golden Egg from Red Notice. So, you know, how are they going to pick it up and throw it over the rope? It's so heavy.
And it hasn't got feet, so it's never going to touch the ground. In all fairness, it's blatantly like a bit of a promo for Jackass, right? But at the same time, this is the way to do it. This is better than having zombies suddenly attack the ring for no reason.
Yeah.
We all like Johnny Knoxville, and I want to see him in the Rumble. Fuck it. Let's go for this. This is one of the times I enjoy it.
Exactly. Like, why not? You know, I look back to the likes of when you'd have Pete Rose and stuff like that in the coming in, and like have his little things with Kane and things like that. Drew Carey was in the Royal Rumble at one point. So you know, they've had celebrities and other people like that in the past, and I think when it makes sense as a bit of a crossover, then why the hell not? You know, at the end of the day, he's a glorified stuntman, so you imagine that he's going to take some hell of a bump or something as part of this, and it just adds a bit of variety, doesn't it, to the Rumble? Obviously, he's not going to go on and win it, and it takes a spot away from, you know, someone on the main roster. But at the same time,
it's dangerous saying things like that. You know, we've seen David Arquette hold a title. Like, don't say that he's not going to win it.
Well, I mean, people have been saying WWE is going full WCW for a while, so let's see.
I feel bad about that. You know, David Arquette, like, especially with his recent documentary and his wanting to sort of go back into the world of wrestling, I feel bad about saying that. Like, I know a lot of people hated it at the time, but he fucking loves wrestling, so fair play to David Arquette.
Yeah, no,
sorry,
we fucking love David Arquette as well. Let's be honest.
Yeah, the show, David.
Yeah, why the hell not? But no, I think interesting one. Yeah, definitely unexpected. But I know since he announced this on his Instagram, he's now been brought onto WWE TV. He can basically
he has.
through
Sami Zayn, I believe.
Yeah, through Sami Zayn over the ropes to prove that, you know, he can. Then he's, you know, that was the announcement that he is now in the Royal Rumble or whatever. So
poor Sami.
Poor Sami. I mean, to be fair though, he's involved with any celebrity guest goes and does something with Sami Zayn. It's kind of mad. To be
part of this whole conspiracy. WWE's got something in for him.
Oh yeah, definitely. So yeah, just a bit of a small one, but yeah, Johnny Knoxville is headed to the Royal Rumble.
Indeed. So the next one, Carl. I'm not sure how I feel about this one, if I'm honest with you, and I'll explain why in a sec. So ITV Studios is working on producing a documentary on Eddie Guerrero's life and career. And this is according to PW Insider. They said the special is actually going to be a part of the Autopsy, the Last Hours of documentary series, which they've done before. And they've actually covered wrestlers before on this. And this is where I'm a little unsure about it, because it's going to be a 60-minute biography on Guerrero's life and pro wrestling career with a focus on his last few years of his life before he passed away at the age of 38. Now, that's the bit that I'm like, I don't. Some people will want to see this, and I am definitely going to watch this, but I kind of wanted a more positive focus. I know you can't avoid talking about his death, but obviously the documentary itself is called Autopsy: The Last Hours of. They've produced similar documentaries talking about Chris Benoit, China, and Randy Savage. And I don't know, I kind of wanted more of a highlight on his career as a whole, rather than, like, I feel like they're going to concentrate a little bit too much around, obviously given the title nature and given the other topics they've talked about in the past. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like maybe we're going to concentrate a little bit too much on everything surrounding his death rather than everything surrounding what made him great and what made his career great. And I would sooner have a more positive spin on a documentary about Eddie, to be honest with you. But I don't like seeing other people leaving, but I just the nature of the documentary makes me think it's going to be quite almost like a Dark Side of the Ring kind of approach. And I'm like, I don't know, I kind of wanted to just look at his life in a positive light, you know.
To be fair, I wasn't aware of any of those other previous ones that you've just said, that they are even in existence. Like, are they out? Can we watch them? Didn't know if they even existed, so I want to watch the hell out of some of them.
Autopsy: The Last Hours of, Carl.
Oh, okay, now going on ITV Hub right after this. which you can get for $9. But no, so I don't know anything about the other documentaries that they have produced, so I need to check them out and see how they were done in order to kind of pass a fair comment. But yeah, I think you're right. It's a shame with Eddie because there's so much more about his story. I think it's a much better story to tell about how someone who was never given a chance in in America, basically. Obviously, he was fine in Mexico, he was fine in Japan, came over to America and was kind of part of the vanilla midgets of, WCW's cruiserweight division. He was never going to go on to be anything and do anything. And then to basically become that world champion, like, obviously, it's a hell of a story to tell. So, a shame that they're going to focus on his final kind of, months and years. But anything around, Eddie and stuff like that, then bet I'm going to watch the hell out of it. So hopefully it's not a super somber kind of thing, and it's more of a celebration of the good parts of his life. But yeah, definitely something I'm going to check out.
It's definitely worth it. And as I say, I'm just doing a little research for you now, Carl. They did one cover in China, that was in 2019. The Randy Savage one's fairly recent, in April 21. And Chris Benoit was actually 2020, so it seems they've covered a wrestler each year with this. So it looks like Eddie's going to be the 2022 one that they cover, because looking at the series as a whole, I mean, they've got like a variety of different people. We've got Audrey Hepburn and Jeffrey Epstein, apparently. Just the John Ritter is another example of sort of names I'm sort of thumbing through here. So, it looks like they seem to have a wrestler on each series by the looks of it. So,
it's pretty cool.
The previous 3 years have had, as I say, China, Chris Benoit, and Randy Savage. So this year's will be Eddie Guerrero by the looks. And
is that on ITV Hub?
It should be on ITV Hub for us, yeah. Apology, I believe it's on. I can even give you some info for our fans in the States. It's on Reels with a Z in the United States. So
love it.
Or is it a Z? Sorry, I might have said that particularly British as well.
It's Reels with a Z.
Just so British. I'm sorry. So Reels in the United States, but should be ITV Hub for us, Cal. And again, it'll be fascinating. It'll be one that I will watch, but I don't know, like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'd sooner it be like a sort of positive light on his career rather than looking at the death in particular, which is an incredibly sad thing, and I know you can't avoid it, but at the same time, does that need to be the focus? And it feels like it's going to be. But hey ho, we'll see.
Yeah. So the next one. So we had again a mass amount of releases from WWE over the past week.
No, that's not like them.
So this time it was I'm
pissed off over this, actually. Serious face.
It was a lot of NXT staff. Now, when it was first announced that there was a lot of NXT staff releases coming up, I don't know why. I just didn't actually think about who that was going to be. So I was very disappointed to firstly hear that Road Dogg was gone. I'm obviously a big fan of Road Dogg, and obviously the stuff he's done over his career, the New Age Outlaws and things like that. And then I was absolutely disgusted at the fact that they released William Regal.
Devastating, Carl.
He's just an absolute national treasure. Obviously for us, he's come from Blackpool in the UK, has managed to go on and become, just such a fantastic on-screen character, a fantastic wrestler, and a fantastic behind the scenes. By all accounts, if you saw the outpour of comments from other wrestlers that he's kind of discovered or took a chance on or made possible, a lot of people come out and said, like, there wouldn't be an FTR if it wasn't for William Regal, there wouldn't be a Sasha Banks if it wasn't for William Regal. So many people have come out and kind of spoke kindly of him, and obviously being the absolute gent that he is, not long after his release, he took to Twitter himself and said, thank you to WWE for a wonderful 21-year run. You gave a lad who was happy and in Wonderland wrestling on a carnival to have a charmed life for 21 years. No complaints, and please no one waste time replying, as I won't have a bad word said against the company.
Fucking class acting. Really is.
Absolutely. And then he obviously followed that up with another tweet. Obviously, we know that there was a point in time where Regal was in a bad place. He basically tweeted that, I'll also add that WWE saved my life in 1999 when they didn't need to. They kept my family fed and took me all around the world. You have my gratitude forever. You allowed me to live a charmed life. So, I mean, just an absolutely wonderful man.
Fair play to the guy. I mean, we'll never know the true thing around the release. I can't fathom why he'd release Regal. From a fan point of view, you and me have said week in or week out that he is exactly what a GM should be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's there when you need him, and he was playing the perfect role in NXT. And obviously, NXT is substantially changing. And part of that has been Regal's release, and we'll never know whether that was an amicable decision, where the WWE have gone, we're releasing you and that's that, and Regal's took it in the most gentlemanly way he can. And to be fair, yeah, he's got a lot to be grateful for with WWE, and it's nice to see him acknowledge that WWE isn't necessarily a bad company to everybody. But from a fan point of view, absolutely devastating that he's gone.
Yeah, no, 1,000,000%. I think as well, if he gets picked up by the likes of AEW or Impact or another company, how lucky is some of these future wrestlers going to be to have someone with his mind that they can work with? I'd like to hope that
this is the interesting thing. He's got a lot to offer the business, hasn't he? So
I mean, it's one of them. Like you could argue that if he decided after 21 years of WWE that he wants to just go back home, or either stay in Florida or go back home to Blackpool and just call it a day, he's earned it. You know what I mean? But at the same time, he's such a veteran. He's got so much knowledge about the wrestling business that he can help. The up and coming talent. I'm sure he could walk into a job anywhere, basically. So,
yeah. I mean, what is home to him now? Do you think he ever, let's say he chose to sort of step away from wrestling and just chill the rest of his days, which you wouldn't blame him. Do you think he would go home, or do you think home is America now to him? He spent a long time, 21 years, in fact, near enough.
Yeah.
That's it's enough to call America home, isn't it?
Well, exactly. Who knows? Some people would want to go, do you know what, I want to retire back home, or some people might just be like, yeah, this is where my life is now, I'm gonna stick here. But
I want to go back to sunny Blackpool. No offense to Blackpool, but he's literally been getting a tan for the last 20 odd years.
And go, Blackpool's a seaside town. It's cool. Beaches and that, if you want to freeze on the beach. But then also, in addition to the likes of Road Dogg and William Regal, I think it was the following day, it was also announced that Samoa Joe has been released again, so for a second time. Obviously, you'll remember he was released from his contract and then brought back by Triple H to NXT. But now, he's been released from his NXT contract as well, so he basically looks like he's going to try and get back in the ring in his kind of future. So whether that's in Impact, whether he goes to AEW or somewhere else, remains to be seen. But yeah, a lot of releases again from the company. It's very much bare bones at the minute, and I think obviously I don't know what this means for the future of the wrestlers. You've got people here who are notoriously good trainers and bookers that have been released, and agents. So it's like they've obviously got this new kind of Find a Star program. I don't know what it's called, but they've got an Instagram account and everything, haven't they, where they basically show who they're signing. So it's like ex-football players and athletes and things like that. But it's like, who's going to train them?
I know it's crazy, isn't it, to think what's going on there now, because you don't really know behind the scenes. The people they've lost to are integral in the development of their new talents. It's who have they got there now?
Yeah, I don't know.
Crazy. Yeah, absolutely crazy. But we'll see. Seeing will be believing. New NXT and all that. Crazy times. Speaking of crazy times, Carl, that's right. I did it. So, the last one. It is the last one, isn't it? It's the last one. And a shocker in a lot of ways is the fact that Mickie James, Impact Knockouts champion Mickie James, will be entering the Women's Royal Rumble for WWE. So we saw this, I think, firstly from a Instagram post from Mickie, in which she's put, you all talk about doors like you're doing big things. Bitch, I raise the bar and kick out the ceiling because that's what legends do. She put, yes, you heard right. After tomorrow, hard to kill. I'm taking myself, my boots, and my Impact Wrestling Knockout Women's World Championship all the way to WWE # Royal Rumble. Final destination WrestleMania she put on there as well, so she plans on winning this shit too. So this was obviously a massive surprise for a lot of people. A massive surprise, I think, from a fan standpoint for us, Carl, because of the way she left WWE in the first place. And interestingly, they spoke to Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President Scott D'Amore, who has said that WWE wanted it, Mickie wanted it, and Impact Wrestling's philosophy is to always work with other major promotions to create buzz for the fans, which is a great ethos, actually. Everything is signed and agreed with WWE and Impact Wrestling. The only question is whether or not Mickie will enter one of WWE's most historic annual matches as the reigning Knockouts World Champion. That has now been answered because she won against Deonna Purrazzo and will be entering as the women's Knockouts Champion. Do you have to say women's? Am I just doing that wrong all the time?
Yeah, I'd just say Knockouts Champion.
Yeah, Knockouts Champion. And now WWE has obviously since announced it. It was announced on SmackDown, announced on their social media, and I think a lot of people are quite like. It's interesting that they're saying the infamous Impact word and they're actually referring to her as Knockouts Champion Mickie James. But you know what? The doors are well and truly open, and it's fantastic to see. I love it. I think we've talked a lot. We've talked to Mickie herself, but we talked a lot on her release in WWE and how devastating it was in the sense of like we wanted to see her have a really good run in WWE and it just felt almost disrespectful. There's the whole trash bag incident. A lot of people thought we'd probably never see her back in WWE, and this is probably the best way for her to be back in WWE. But let's face it, since leaving WWE, she's been absolutely killing it. We had NWA's Empower. We've had everything she's done in Impact. We've had obviously a now title run with the Knockouts Championship. She's just been absolutely killing it since leaving, and what a awesome way to come back to enter the Women's Royal Rumble as the champion for Impact. Fantastic. It'd be interesting to see
again something
a WrestleMania match.
Something I didn't have on my 2022 bingo card. WWE opening the Forbidden Door themselves. It was obviously. Did you see when Pat McAfee announced it on SmackDown? I was surprised the reference he made. He was like, after all the garbage she's been through, and I was like, fucking hell, like, on the nose again. Like you can't really make a joke out of it.
I mean, at the end of the day, they've obviously put some water under the bridge. She's willing to, like, one of the comments from Scott D'Amore there was Mickie wanted it, so she's obviously keen on working with WWE again. And if she's going to come in, proving a point and using that as almost a storyline point of view, then why the fuck not?
Yeah. I mean, she said it best herself on her Instagram. An absolute fucking legend. Like, who else do you know who's dominated? WWE, Impact, NWA. It's insane.
What's going to be? It sounds stupid, but what's going to be slightly weird is it's highly likely because she is coming in as the country strong Mickie James from Impact. So presumably it's going to be her Impact theme music and her Impact persona. So that's going to be kind of weird to see Impact Mickie James in WWE.
She's going to come out with the title. She's going to have the Impact, like the Knockout Championship on WWE TV.
Well, it's going to be really she's going to be a different character in a way, which is that's going to be a bit surreal as well.
You know what? It's a mad that you mentioned that. I think I would be disappointed if they start playing the whole like little clapping kind of Mickie music in WWE. I want it to be hardcore country.
It's got to be. It's got to be. Like, yeah. I'll be so pissed off if they don't do that. But the fact that she's coming in as the Knockouts champion, Mickie James, they've got to embrace the Impact persona, haven't they? And the deal's signed, so they're going to use that music, surely. Yeah.
I mean, obviously we were chatting about it mostly in jest, obviously, on This Week in Wrestling. But it's like, well, obviously there's other people coming back as well, like the Bellas and I think Michelle McCool's in there and stuff like that. Kelly. But obviously Mickey's the only one who's currently signed to another company, so we were like joking, is the Forbidden Door potentially open? Will there be more people coming through? Will we see anyone from AEW and the like? But as far as I'm aware, as I said, I think they've only filled about 17-18 spots of the women's Rumble roster, so if they are going to go with 30 like they normally would do, you sprinkle in a few NXT names potentially, but there's still
it's not potential. The AEW thing's not unrealistic. I mean, we've recently heard, it never put it in the news, but we recently heard that they have sort of been reaching deals between the two companies over documentaries to include some AEW talents in their documentaries, because obviously featured heavily some ex-WWE people, etc. So, it's not unrealistic to suggest that they could make a deal between them for some appearances. And maybe they've done that as a surprise element, so we're not getting
it's so frustrating, isn't it? Because you could imagine, like, what an absolute buzz it would generate for WWE if they did just like let, I don't know, like fucking someone like MJF or whatever rock up, or Thunder Rosa and stuff from AW.
Man, MJF was a surprise entrant to the men's rumble. That would be an absolute banger.
There could be more from Impact. Chelsea Green could show up. She never got a fair shake in WWE. Imagine if she just rocks up in there. The Iconics or the Inspiration. You know what I mean? Imagine that.
Crazy thing is, like, Matt Cardona's built himself up something shocking since leaving WWE. You could actually see Matt Cardona rock back up. In theory.
Imagine.
The bridge is there. But I love it. And again, you look at the positive impact it's had on both Impact and AEW. How can WWE not look at this and go, actually opening the doors between the companies is a good thing? It's a good thing for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, it generated so much buzz at the fact that she was announced on SmackDown. So imagine if, someone crazy was like entrant number 1 in the Rumble, and it was all over social media, like, what, MJF from AEW is in the men's Royal Rumble. Everyone would be like, fucking, poof, I'm buying WWE Network right now, because who else is going to show up?
Honestly, though, like, and I don't feel like I'm overstating this when I say it, but let's say you have that example, because I would love to see that. Men's Royal Rumble kicks off, and MJF comes out as number 1, right? I can guarantee our WWE Network's going to fucking crash.
Well, exactly.
Because people will storm to buy it once it goes around social media a little bit. We're probably going to lose our connection around entrant number 10 because the internet's just gone fucking nuts.
Yeah,
and I don't think I'm overstating that.
Well, exactly. So I still don't believe it's gonna. I literally think it'll. And I'm saying, it'll just be Mickie. Like, that in itself is fantastic, but I think a lot of people now, kind of speculations running wild, brother.
But here's the thing, like, you make a good point about not knowing all the entries yet for the women's. Like, there's no way they're going to spill the beans on something as big as Mickie without having more surprises lined up. Royal Rumble is known for its surprise entrance, and they've already revealed. Correct me if I'm wrong. They've revealed both the Bellas. They've revealed Mickie. There's a couple of other names there that you've already mentioned as well, isn't there?
Yeah, Kelly. Michelle McCool.
Yeah. Because McCool put up a reference to her being in the audience, and she as well, for the Undertaker match, or for recent matches. And
is it Summer Rae?
Summer Rae, yeah, I think she's coming back. So, like, they've already announced a hell of a lot of people. It was like, have they announced Lita as well?
Yeah, Lita's in there.
I didn't know about that one.
Yeah.
So, there's just loads going on in that sense, and like stuff that you think, well, you could have saved that for a surprise. The fact that they're not, and the fact that they're known for surprise entrance at the Rumble, actually really fills me with hope. I'll be honest with you.
I
get why they'd announced Mickie, because Mickie is like a big draw. That's going to get people buying the pay-per-view beforehand, but they're still going to want to surprise some people as well.
I might be wrong, but it's been so quiet on this kind of front for a while that there could be something in it. But what if Paige is being cleared to return?
Imagine, like, because there are rumors. There keep being rumors.
Like, she's still with the company. She's not in any kind of
do you know what?
Role
she
anymore.
Might not be cleared for a return, but I reckon they might have cleared her for like a couple of bumps in a Rumble.
Well,
that wouldn't be unrealistic.
And if anyone's been through enough and deserves to actually, have the opportunity to go out on her terms, it's going to be Paige in it. So, fingers crossed. Cool. But yeah, who knows? Like, obviously, that's the magic of the Rumble, and over the years, we've always said it's the surprises and stuff like that. Like, we love Rumbles that have got surprises in more than the ones that don't, because it's just.
I know it's debatable, Carl, and I think we've debated it, but this is why the Royal Rumble is my favourite pay-per-view.
Yeah. I mean, like, you just don't know who's going to turn up and what's going to happen, do you? Like, so, we had MVP, wasn't it, a couple of Rumbles ago, just rocked up out of nowhere. Yeah. The next minute he's fucking managing the hair business and he's a permanent fixture, and it's like, what the hell?
We can forget Edge's return.
Yeah,
exactly. The pandemic kind of hit like not long after, and he was out for a bit afterwards as well. But Edge returned at the Rumble, and that was just like goosebumps moment, man.
Yeah. So I mean, who knows if they can pull off some surprises and keep a lot of stuff under wraps? I think that's what we love about the Rumble. But at the same time, even when there's no surprises, it's always that kind of standout, isn't it? So
it must be crazy difficult. Like, when they want to draw people in, they want to sell tickets, but where do you draw the line? Like, I understand revealing some stuff. Like, AEW have a similar problem. It's like, we've announced some stuff because they want people tuning in, and I get it. But at the same time, it's like I would have loved the Mickie thing to be a surprise. but I can also understand why they've announced it, because that is definitely going to make people want to tune in.
Yeah.
Like, it's
I think
it's really difficult.
I think let's see how it shapes up and how many more people get announced. I think if, on the women's side, for example, if they announce 25 people, then there's a chance there's 5 big surprises in there. One of them's probably going to be Dana Brooke. It just comes out for whatever reason that they forgot that she even was there. But then, there could be 4 big surprises in there. But obviously, if they get everyone announced, then, it's going to be a bit of a shame because you know everyone. But I love it when they do announce a certain amount, but then they leave a lot to interpretation. And obviously, a lot of them are letdowns, but it's when you have that magic one of like, oh my god, it's so and so.
And you get your daft ones that aren't. I wouldn't class them as letdowns, but I think they're quite good. Like when they had Santina enter the Women's Rumble, only to sort of poke fun at how inappropriate it is in today's day and age and eliminate himself. Like, even that sort of stuff, it was good. It was funny. You could argue it was a waste of an entrant, but I don't think it was. I think it was a good way of poking fun at some of the tone deaf stuff WWE have done in the past.
Yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, like obviously we've got Johnny Knoxville in there, so we're going to get a couple of other random celebrity entrants, maybe. Like, who knows?
More characters from Jackass, maybe.
Yeah, Steve-O's just in it now randomly.
Not unrealistic. He's appearing in a few places at the minute, Steve-O.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I'm absolutely, obviously, we've got more of a vested interest in Mickie than we ever have, like, with the fact she's been on the show. So obviously,
I think the fact that we've had a guest on the show who is currently the Impact Knockouts champion and is entering the Women's Royal Rumble is fucking cool.
It's very cool. I think it was Mark Henry who actually said this past week, like, whether this could also be leading to a Hall of Fame induction for her, because she deserves it. I think he said, like, titles aside, like, obviously she's won a lot of them, but just the fact that
more so than you realise, Carl.
Shut up! I'll never live it down, will I? Put it this way, right? The one thing I'll take from our interview every single time is, she knows that she got interviewed by 2 people, but one of them is a dickhead called Carl, and at least that means she knows. She
definitely knows your name. Yeah.
She knows me. I've got that sound bite.
Never know me as is the other one, the handsome lad. I don't know. I kid, of course.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think absolutely made up that she's and so shocked by it that it has actually made me even more excited now for the Rumble, and obviously it's something we get excited about anyway. So hopefully we're both going to be. We'll have to think about that actually. Are we going to do some kind of Rumble event or whatever, like a bit of Rumble Mania? I
think we definitely need some hype around it. I like maybe just random shorts on TikTok and YouTube might be in order as well, because I'm going to be excited about some shit, but I want to watch the pay-per-view at the same time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's one of them. Like, I think doing the Twitch live stream and stuff can be quite distracting from actually watching the thing, can't it? So
that was the unfortunate thing with Mania. Like, when we did, I thoroughly enjoyed doing the Twitch live. It was a nice experience, but it sort of took away from just watching the pay-per-view, So I think there's an element of that there. Might be as we get more comfortable, that feels less of a burden, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how you streamers do it.
I'm sure we'll do something anyway around Rumble time, because we'll just be super excited for it. But yeah, nothing more so than to see Mickie James, which I can't wait. Just to see, like, hopefully she gets in there and actually has a good showing as well. They don't just imagine if they brought her in just to dump her out straight away.
Now, I'm going to film Carl's face when Mickie enters, because he's going to squeal like a girl, probably.
Yeah, probably. But, like, could you imagine, like, what an absolute slap in the face it'd be if, like, she comes in and then just gets eliminated straight away, and it's just like a big fuck you to Impact, and it's basically just Vince going.
No way. Like, that would be a massive smack in the face. There's just no way. There's no way. I'm curious, like, because she's saying about #WrestleMania. Like, are they, like, there's no way she's going to win it. Surely WWE wouldn't sign off on her winning the whole thing. Like, I know it'd lead to a banger of a match at WrestleMania, but would they sign off to an Impact champion winning the Rumble? Would they do that?
Who would you ever go up against, Charlotte or Becky?
Does it have to be one of them?
Well, based on who it is today, unless, well, all right then. Like, who would you ever go up against anyway, if it could change hands at, like, the Rumble or whatever? That's the thing. Like, who'd you ever up against? Like, for me,
yeah, I'm struggling to be like. I have a bit of a resentment towards the Four Horsewomen at the minute, like just because they are oversaturated. But who have they built up? Who would be a banger of a match? In all fairness, like I'd probably go Becky over Charlotte. But if you need to pick a horsewoman, let's get Bayley back. I'd like that match.
Yeah, I'd choose Becky over Charlotte. I'd probably choose Becky over Bayley as well. But for me, if you want an absolute fantastic match, you'd have someone like Asuka or something coming. I mean, maybe Asuka's going to be at the Rumble.
I mean, we haven't seen Asuka in a good while. That could be a good shout.
Where is she? Asuka?
I think the trouble we've got is like WWE would book. Let's say they've gone right. We'll definitely have a Mickie at Mania, right? WWE would want to book something that's going to draw, and sadly, I think that's where you land on either Becky or Charlotte. I don't think they're going to. As much as I would probably more enjoy a match between Mickie and Asuka. I think what you're probably going to get is the big draw names for WWE, which will be either Charlotte or Becky.
Yeah.
Unless we get,
right.
like, say, we get some other surprise entrance of like some. No, they wouldn't do it. I was going to say we'd run it back. We get another surprise of like Trish coming back, and you get Trish, Mickie. But that's not going to happen.
I'd love that again. That'd be so good.
But if they brought like another legend, let's say Paige could come back and have a run, could we end up seeing like Paige versus Mickie or something? I just don't know.
Who knows? But I'll tell you who is going to see Mickie, because we're going to see Mickie when she comes to For Love of Wrestling this year.
Yeah.
So we've had her on the show, and we're going to get to see her in person as well. So that's going to be
nice. To sign my face.
But yeah, Anthony, that was the news this week. We still got another fun-filled segment to come. If you haven't already, check out This Week in Wrestling for our thoughts on day one, and obviously all the shows for this week. But also we're going to be going with another what if episode, and what if the streak didn't end in the way that it did. What if it never ended at all? What if it ended sooner? What if it ended, later? I don't know. So yeah, we're gonna riff about that in a minute. But until then, before we riff, here's Griff Garrison with
nice.
A nice little sign off for you.
This is Griff Garrison, and you're listening to A2theK.
A2theK. A2theK.
A2theK.